Hello again, everyone. I'm Martin Falls. Very proud to have with me Coach Brian Gano. And I call him Coach. A lot of you who probably have just met Brian over the years don't realize that he was a coach for many years, and he had a state championship in baseball in 1971. And what a team that was. And we're honoring that team this week at HTV. But Coach Brian Gano joins me now. Coach, very good to have you. How are you?
Thank you, Martin. Doing great. It's great to see that you're doing something and have initiated this aspect of honoring that 71 team. That was a special group.
Well, and y'all deserved it. We joke a lot. And you know, you've been involved in all the jokes between my class 78 and the class of 71 and 72. But it's like we said, y'all won a state championship. We did not. So it's time for us in our latter years to honor y'all and to bring y'all together and have a little fun. And that was a special team, wasn't it?
Yes, it really was. A very special group. That was my third year of coaching at Vandebilt. And a lot of these guys started played quite a bit as sophomores and juniors, because we actually had a depleted roster when I took over. Right. They had a great senior group before. So, but these guys stuck with it. They were willing to really develop. And the great thing about baseball, not just develop the individual skills, but also team concept skills too. So it's a great group to work with.
And you had a great group of seniors.
Rich Rao, Eddie McCulley said, okay. Mike Fake, Craig Molizon, Danny Caballero.
I always thought that Don Same and Philip Lottinger were seniors, but you had to be just chomping at the bit knowing those juniors were coming back.
Oh, yes. In fact, Philip and Don were our top pitchers. Philip was All-State junior and his senior year, and we ended up losing out in the finals in 72.
What was the key to that team? Because we see them all now, and of course, I always talk about us growing up, but I grew up a lot of time in Annie Manny and Mr. Ed McCullough's house. So we saw Eddie a lot. So we were tuned in to that group. They were confident. They were a confident group.
Yes.
They could hit the ball well. They had just a very good season. Were they coachable?
Highly coachable. And I think that truly makes a difference. Those 5 starters basically played a position that they hadn't played, they were not either starters at or had played the previous year. And these guys were very receptive to it. In fact, to begin the year, Mike Fake was a starting second baseman the year before, moved him to short. Fritz Rao was in left field, moved him to second base. And as you know in baseball, you've got to be strong up the middle. And both of those guys just had great handwork. Eddie McCullough started off as our catcher, but once our center fielder had flunked out, I moved Eddie to first base, because our first baseman, Craig Molizon, was just an outstanding all-around athlete. Moved him to center field. And he cover some ground. And then our next best person up next was Terry Farrell. He was our next catcher. So I felt very comfortable in making those moves and have Terry come in catching. I would have sacrificed average for Terry's ability to be a good defensive catcher, but he ended up hitting in the 320s anyway. So that was an added plus.
One of the players on that team, and I know him well, he grew up in Barrios, was Danny Caballero. Most players, if the coach says was the most improved, would probably say, mustn't mean I was that good last year, okay? But you really put some accolades on him. He really worked hard, didn't he?
He did work hard, Martin. Most of our baseball players played another sport. Most of them had played football, some basketball. But Danny didn't. Baseball was his only sport. And we talked about what he needed to do during the summer and what he did during the fall to get himself ready. You're familiar with the old overhang next to the cafeteria. And, of course, I'm on the practice field in football, and I'm watching him underneath. He's throwing tennis balls up against that ball, fielding them, doing different things to develop his hand-eye coordination and throwing also. So he developed into a heck of a third baseman. I think one of the things Mike Fake and I were talking a while back about it is that Caballero at third base, if that ball took a bad hop, it was going to hit him in the chest. He never let anything go under his glove, or under his legs. But he would knock that ball down. It was like a brick wall there. He was just an outstanding athlete.
And I think this is worth talking about because with all the teams that have won state in different sports over the years, your baseball team was the last one in the parish to win a state baseball championship. That's over 50 years.
Yes, it's difficult to believe. I've been away for a while, so I found that difficult to believe. With
With all the talent we've had come through here, but it goes back. I say it, not that everybody had bad coaches, but every team you coached, situation.
Yes.
Where did you get that from?
Playing ball for Coach Buddy Marcella at South Terrebonne, we worked in that. And then when I was at Nichols, Coach Ray Didier was the athletic director and baseball coach, wanted me to walk on. And I decided after a while, no, that was going to be the end of my career. Let me work on the books because I was majoring in mathematics. But I had some lecture classes with him and discussed it so much. And he was a great mentor, too, for baseball and football. But that's the thing that we often talked about, is that so many games are lost, not just on errors, but mental mistakes that never show up in the scoreboard.
You know, and a lot of times players, they get into the psyche of their coach. And I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but did you enjoy winning more than you hated to lose?
Well, I hated to lose. Now, I liked the heck out of winning.
Right.
But I didn't like to lose, Martin. I felt like if we lost, and I know we wasn't going to win them all, we played a tough schedule. Played a lot. All of our non-district games were against higher competition. So I knew we wasn't going to win them all, but I felt like it's my job as a coach to put my players in position where they have an opportunity to win. So I didn't like losing.
No, and sometimes that drives people as much as the luxury of winning.
Right.
Sometimes. Y'all had a lot of aces y'all faced in non-district games.
Yes.
That it baffles me because they had a key district game maybe the next couple of days, but they threw their ace against you because they didn't want to lose to Vandebilt.
They didn't want to lose to Vandebilt, and many of them were local schools, so I think they felt like the up-and-coming athletes may choose to come to Vandebilt rather than go to their school.
Was that always a concern of coaches back then? You know, we talk about recruiting. I don't want to use the word recruitment, but influence. Kids want to go to a winning program, don't they?
Yes, I think most do. Yes, I would agree.
So, you know, if you're winning, you know it's going to sort of self-serve itself. People are going to want to come and play.
So we're saying success breeds success.
Right. You also started something that was very special where you would bring a couple of eighth graders up on your program, or freshmen, and you would move them up the ranks. Where did you get that idea from?
I felt, Martin, that if, and looking at the talent, and I think I did a good job of analyzing the talent we have, and if I could not project a person as a starter by their junior or at least by their senior year, then there was no sense in keeping them. I'd rather spend that time on the younger talent coming up. Now, back then we were limited to, because you still had a good Babe Ruth program in place. But I wanted them to get acclimated to what we do, how we do it, and learn the skill sets that we were utilizing with our older players.
But how did you mesh that? Because I know that Brian Molazon, Harry McCullough were brought up early on, but of course they're mingling with juniors and seniors as a young Vandebilt player, so the age difference is unbelievable.
Yes.
I can imagine sometimes, and I say this in all lightheartedness, there's a little torment that goes with that sometimes too.
I'm sure there was. At the same time, even at 71 team, we had great leadership as a group. And I really think we had that every year that I was there. So I think the younger student athletes looked up to the old ones for that leadership. And I don't think any of them to the standpoint that, oh no, I'm better than who's playing out there. They were willing to learn not only from me, but from their older players too.
You know, we joked the other day, I said in the class of 78, of all our starters, all of them were alpha males.
You're right.
So
You're
you
right.
had a ton of alpha males on that team, but they managed to get it done. How do you manage a bunch of alpha males?
Well, the interesting thing, Martin, is that none of them were looking for all the glory and all the attention. They were willing to do whatever it took. We believed in advancing runners. So that meant 1 through 9, you may be called on to bunt. You may be called on to hit and run. Dependent, again, you said it before, we play situational baseball.
Right.
And they were willing to do it. And I think they demonstrate, and each year they demonstrated to the younger guys, this is how we're going to play baseball at Vandebilt Catholic.
And there's a set way that you taught. And I don't know how baseball's changed over the years, but it seems to have changed. And
Yes.
we all joke about it, where people position themselves when a ball's hit in the outfield. Or some people bunt and they start to the ground and they go up. You stressed it so many times, you start high and come down.
Come down. If you start at the shoulders and the pitch is above your bat, then you know it's going to be a ball.
Right.
Because the worst thing you can do, and you know this from a bunting situation, unless no one's on and you're bunting for a base hit, but most of the time you advance at a runner. Last thing you want to do is pop the ball up.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start bringing that bat up to bunt, more than likely you're going to pop it up. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I think it's small things like that, Martin, that makes a ton of difference as to what these athletes can do, how they can adjust to it. And I think the key is once they see this really works, then it's easy to get them to buy into it.
Let's talk about that team, because I told you before, we were young. I want to say we were about 11 when y'all were playing these games,
okay.
and we were going to the games, me and Harry McCullough, and we'd go home and we'd play like we Phil Lottinger or Don Same or whoever the hero was at the time, because it changed every game. Everybody had their shot at it, like
They
you
did.
said.
They did.
Or Barry Nake hitting one over Tunnel Boulevard into the old folks' home.
Yes.
So when you talk about those athletes, let's just talk in general. Who was your best all-around player on that team? And I know it's hard to pick.
Oh, that'd be hard to pick because we had so many good ones. I'd say in that 71 team, Craig Molazone was probably the best all around. He could hit for average, he could hit for distance, he could play first base or he could play the outfield, and he was a left-hander.
And he could pop one up right over the first baseman.
Oh, yes.
Which he did
so
quite a
he
bit.
was, yes, and he was quick.
Mm-hmm.
He had good speed. So he just a great all-around
Mm-hmm.
athlete.
So he was your utility guy. You could put him anywhere.
I could have put him anywhere.
Okay. Pitching, you had two pretty good aces that you could call on. It dropped off after those two, but you still had good athletes on the mound. But when you call on a Philip Lottinger and Don Same, it's really hard to go wrong.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And the thing with Philip that I loved about it is that he was willing to develop some other pitches. He had a tremendous fastball. Mm-hmm. And what he had to do to learn how to do is to paint the corners, mm-hmm. hit the black of the plate, and also develop a good off-speed pitch. I still remember the state championship game over in Opelousas. We ended up beating them 8-3, but I think in the fourth inning possibly, they ended up loading the bases with no one out. We had to settle him down a little bit. He came back and struck out the next three.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think if that wasn't more motivation for our team to get behind him.
Didn't he also hit a deep shot off the fence in one of the games?
He hit a ground rule double to center field.
Was that in the state championship game?
State championship game.
So he had a pretty good stick to go with it.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Now, back then, you didn't have a designated hitter for the pitcher or anyone else.
And you didn't have aluminum bats.
That's correct.
They're wooden bats. Wow.
That's exactly right.
So how much, you talked about the fact they were coachable, but you didn't have soccer. You didn't have a lot of these programs now where you didn't have travel ball.
Right.
So
thank goodness.
Yeah. what was it like? Because now we've all heard the coaching stories that I not only have to deal with the players, I got to deal with the parents. You never had much of that.
Unless I was oblivious to it, I had no trouble with the parents.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. And the thing we did at Vanderbilt, too, was encourage these guys to play as many sports as they could. Mm-hmm. Because I think your muscle tone, you work it out as you're working this, your muscles, you're going to use different muscles for different sports. So I think the worst thing we can do is just concentrate on one sport all year round. To me, you don't develop the body as much as you should.
You know, and you had just great athletes on this team, and I know I'm going to forget some, and you watch the ones that did play other sports. Terry Bro is an example.
Good all-round
Ronnie
athlete.
S.J. playing basketball,
Right.
too. And so they were good, but looking at those guys, too, they hated to lose. So I know when they were going out there, they all wanted to win. And sometimes you can't teach that. Either somebody got that killer instinct in them, and when they go out, they want to leave no prisoners. And the drive is unbelievable in that team.
That's a good comment, and I really think I was never one of those to be all rah-rah and no substance to it. But I think these guys really bought into it, and they could see it, that if you develop the mental aspect, if you knew how to react in every situation, especially defensively, that ball was put into play, all 9 people are moving somewhere. Mm-hmm. Do you know where you're going? I see games today, and I see several people just standing around, waiting for somebody else to make a play. But you guys knew everybody had an assignment. And I think because of that, Martin, we worked so hard on all of that, is that they had great confidence going into a game.
Plus, you also drilled into all of us, no matter what year it was, talk to your teammate.
Communicate.
They within shouting distance. Just turn around and go, be ready, you know.
Communicate.
And you see some teams not talking at all.
Martin, my consulting work, I tell people the biggest problem in the business world for many years has been lack of communications. And the biggest problem in most people's home life is a lack of communications. So I was going to make sure we communicated well.
One thing you were big on, and I don't mind using Roger Mullis as an example because I loved his mom and dad.
He's going to love being an example.
Yeah. Good point, especially that home run on Independence.
Right.
But I think he got called out on a third strike. I'll let you take it from there. That's a great story.
Yeah, I think it was a called third strike. It was a bad call. But one of the things I always did, Martin, is I never allowed, whether it's football or baseball, an athlete to argue with the umpire. You know, if I think something's wrong, I'll go out there and have a chat with the umpire or the referee. Well, Roger got a little upset. He said something, and as he's walking, first of all, he's walking back to the dugout, and I never allowed that. You sprint back to the dugout. You jog back to the dugout. We don't walk when we're on the field.
Right.
And through his bat, through his helmet, he was aggravated. So I just motioned to him. I said, have a seat. And I put somebody else in at third base. I said, I'm not going to tolerate that. This is the way we're going to operate. And the great thing about it, Martin, his mom and dad, wonderful people, they came up to me after the game, after most people had cleared, and thanked me for pulling him out of the game. I don't think that would happen much today.
No, but they knew you were trying to teach them the right way.
Yeah. Right.
And so they backed you.
Well, you know, and the thing is, athletics is a lot more than just winning or losing. You got to learn lessons for life. So you got to learn how to approach it correctly, how to keep your emotions in check.
When the spring came around, your first season as coach, you were 23, correct?
Yes, right,
You were 25 when you won a state championship.
right.
You weren't much older than the players.
They still kid me about that, Mark. They thought I was old.
But, I mean, most people don't get a state championship their entire career. And here comes Brian Gano
Right.
and gets one at 25 years old. And you were in my office the other day when we called Fritz around. He said, yeah, my dad filmed some of that on 8mm. What was that like when y'all won that state championship? Bring me back. What was that like?
Oh, it was euphoric. I mean, it was so great. I think too, Martin, I was very fortunate to be able to take over the baseball program my first year at Vandebilt. Prior coach had decided to leave at midterm, who I was going to assist him, but he decided to get out of teaching. So I was fortunate enough to be able to take over the baseball program. And I was fortunate enough to have many good athletes. So I was excited about that. I never once felt like my age would be a hindrance from doing a good job. I know what I wanted to do, whether I was an assistant or a head coach.
Yeah,
And
but
just
you
the
were
idea of
always
doing it.
confident as a coach.
Yes.
That trickles down to the players.
Well, I hope so.
They look at that. The fact that you played for legends, did that put any added pressure on you that now, okay, I'm coaching, I got to get me a state championship because Buddy Marcello and all these other guys got one. I got to put one on my mantle.
I never felt that. But I tell you what I did feel. I felt like I'm prepared to do this, and now let's go do it. One of the things I was always a big believer in, too, you've got to get the mental aspect of the game. You've got to work on your individual skills, team skills, but also you got to have fun. You got to have fun. And I think teams that are more relaxed, again, considering talent being equal, I think the team that's more relaxed is going to do a better job of it. Because if you don't play within your emotions, you're going to make a lot of physical errors and a lot of mental mistakes.
But one thing about your teams, it was drilled so much. I'm sure it was no different in my class than it was for the class of 71. You're so prepared when you get to the game. In the 7th inning, you got to run on first and third, and they got one out. Everybody's head's going, okay, we've been over this in practice about 8,000 times, and it's a no-brainer. So you chit-chatting with the guys in the outfield, the infielders are chit-chatting.
You're reminding each other.
Routine.
And that's the key is it's one thing to know what you have to do at your position, but do you understand what to do if the ball was hit anywhere else? And that's why I still see people get a little flat-footed out there. They're just kind of standing around, becoming a spectator rather than a participant.
Who were some of the best teams on that championship year? I think what y'all went 14-4, something like that.
Yeah, because we had several games rained out. Back then, you really didn't play tournaments, and you could schedule but 20 games, and if they got rained out, especially a non-district game, it was tough to try to reschedule at times.
Was Terrebonne one of those teams where it became a big rivalry?
Yes, I think with all of them. And then HL had put a program in, South Terrebonne, HL. We also played South Lafourche and then Central Lafourche. So at Thibodeau High, I enjoyed playing these bigger schools. In fact, you talked about the pitching that some of them would save. We played these bigger schools so we would get good competition and good experience. So they threw the ace against us. Hey, that's an added plus.
This area has always been a great area for great talent. That's why I'm shocked that 51 years later I'm sitting on a desk with you and no one has won a state championship since that team of 71, because we've had some unbelievable talent.
Yes, we have. And I think what happens when you get into playoffs, sometimes you've got to have lady luck on your side, too. Sometimes just one or two things may go wrong. Now, I'm not sure how long ago, Martin, but the state championship game now, from what I understand, for a few years in a row, it's the best 2 out of 3. It's not just one game.
Right. Yeah, so you could take luck won't follow you normally for 3 games.
That's exactly right.
You can get it for 1.
Right.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong. When your teams would take the field and you're hitting infield and you're getting a pretty good feel how the team is, are they loose? Are they tight? Are they on their A game? How are you feeling back? You could actually win that game during infield and outfield because that other team's looking, and you could put a psych job on them pretty good, couldn't you?
Yes, you could. We worked on those things. We wanted to really look good. You want to look smooth to where that other team is thinking, man, this is going to be tough getting something through these guys. And I think that's all part of the psychology aspect of it, too. I think it improves the mental attitude of our players, and it makes the other team look like, man, who are we playing today? It's going to be tough.
And I know you so well now, and you're quite a funny guy. You really are. You're quick-witted, and your one-liners come out pretty loose. But I'm thinking back to the years where you were coaching, and I'm not sure if you were different when you were 25 coaching the class of 71. You always had that A-game coaching mentality on there. But I'm sure there were some light moments that took place during the game where you probably wanted to really laugh, but you said, well, I can't let myself go too much because then I'm going to lose the team. So did you have to keep it in check?
Yes. Yeah. But probably if you ask the guys who were not starters when they were on the bench, they'd probably tell you some funny stories of things that took place in the dugout.
Yeah, I mean, in baseball, you got to keep it loose, too.
Yes, exactly.
Because if they get too tight, then errors start and everything.
You know, Martin, I go back to what you see nowadays where everybody wants to do all these chants before a game, whether it's football or whatever. To me, all that does, it gets people emotionally high. They're going to make mistakes.
Right.
Now, I want to be even keeled. I want guys to be out there smiling, having fun, knowing that I got this.
Yeah, but you had a different coach, and I remember interviewing Boyd Hebert, who had the Eddie White championships.
Yes.
And he was telling me, Martin, I let the kids took their shirts off. They put suntan lotion on, and they were getting good tans, and we were playing baseball and having fun. There wasn't nobody getting a tan when Brian Gano was the coach.
No, I didn't quite get to that standpoint with it. No.
What do you miss about it? I mean, like I said, you have a state championship. No one can ever take that away. I'm surprised it took so long to get this team together. They can't take it away from the team.
Right.
It sort of lives on in infamy.
Yes, it does. And this team deserves that. I was astounded when I heard no one else had won one, not just at Vandebilt, but the entire parish. Because, as you said earlier, there's been a lot of great baseball talent to come through here.
Yeah.
But I think, Martin, what I love so much about it, you don't have to be the quickest, the strongest, and the fastest in baseball. It's more of a mental aspect in looking at each athlete individually and saying, how can I help this guy reach his potential? I hear nowadays from people that coaches want to show hitting film of a major leaguer. You can name different ones that they use. And people ask me, what did you do? I said, I'd watch each guy in the batting cage, not in the cage, but in batting practice, and work with them from there. Because no two people are going to have the exact same stance. They're not going to have the same swing.
You were a math teacher, and a very good one. I didn't have you. You had my older sister and my older brother.
Right.
And I think meticulous would describe you. Tell me if I'm wrong. You're
absolutely right.
You're very meticulous. You're a numbers guy. The numbers don't lie. And baseball's a numbers thing. Everybody has a batting average. Everybody has a fielding average. Everybody has this and everybody has that. I would imagine in your mindset, you were playing the numbers all the way through the game. All right,
yes.
We're down by one.
Well,
I got somebody up there who can bunt his way on. I got somebody. You were always thinking.
What's the percentages? What gives us our best shot at being in a position to be able to win this ball game? And I appreciate the fact about the math teacher, but my degree is in mathematics.
It is.
So
right.
But I tell you, I enjoyed teaching the classroom as much as I enjoyed the coaching.
You
and
did.
You know how much I enjoyed coaching.
You did.
But to me, everything's it comes down to the mathematics of it. Or you as an individual, what are you best at doing when I have you at the plate? What is this situation involved? So how am I best to utilize your skills with you at the plate? Maybe a guy on first, or maybe somebody on first and third, and we need just one run. So to me, it all comes down to the statistics.
Well, Coach,
and that was the analytics before they had analytics.
Yeah, you're right. I want to congratulate you because what a heck of a team you had. What a heck of a job you did coaching. And just to see all those guys are still close.
Yes.
They still get along, and they're going to love this because they earned it.
Yes, and it was an honor for me to be able to coach those guys. And probably every group I had at Vandebilt, I was very fortunate.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. You were one heck of a coach, and it's great to see you and your team. And I'll tell you what, 51 years later, we're still waiting for someone and anxious for someone to win another state championship.
Thank you, Martin.
All right. Good to see you, Coach.